All right. Good morning, Ron Hill. We are so excited to have you join us in Santa Fe next month. It's already coming up very quickly for our Wisdom for a Better Tourism retreat. To start out with, we would love if you just took a moment and just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your story.
All right. Well, thank you, Jen. It's great to be here. I've enjoyed a little bit of our pre-recorded banter and getting to know each other a little bit. So it's so interesting when somebody asks my story, like I can tell a really short version, and sometimes there's so much to our journeys. And so I think the important thing is that at this point in my life, I am the founder and guide for Conscious Leaders Quest. And Conscious Leaders Quest has the purpose of helping leaders discover the best version of themselves so they can impact the same in those that they lead. And so we believe that the world is better when we do our inner work.
Mm.
Here in this space, I would say when we work through our trauma, and there's a lot of things in other spaces, I wouldn't necessarily use that wording, but it's just kind of this human journey that um, if we take responsibility, we're better versions of ourselves. And I believe that is this really powerful thing that gets to change the world, and that has been my experience. And then just backing up from that a little bit, I've always been an entrepreneur, and I started a company in 1996, and I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I just knew that I wanted a better life than what I had
Yeah.
experienced in corporate settings. And I thought, well, if I want that, then maybe other people want that. And what ultimately ended up was that I found purpose and really found a way to talk about what I wanted to do, like going back like the 12, I think this happened around year 12 of my business. And at the
Mm.
beginning, what I really wanted to say is that I want a purpose-driven organization. I want a company that does good while being profitable,
Mm.
but we get to lift everybody up in the process, and we get to create a space where people can bring their whole selves to work. And once we went on this journey, then it changed everything about our profitability. And what tipped me on that journey, which has tipped me on most of my journeys, is some things going wrong, and then figuring out at one point the more we sold on the top line, the less we had on the bottom line. And so
Mm.
really figuring out how we create organizational clarity, eliminating waste and rework. And
Right.
ultimately it was this heart journey and it was this purpose journey. And then in that process, um, through those next, I'm trying to think like how many years, ultimately, my oldest son, had a drug and alcohol addiction when he was 16, and that
Mm.
led our entire family into recovery, which was really one of the greatest gifts.
Mm.
And I would say most people in my family, including my son, who's now 23, would say it was one of the greatest gifts because we found an amazing toolbox.
Mm.
And for me, trying to fix problems, I found out that I actually was part of the problem and all I could do was to fix myself. That led me on a
Mm.
journey, which ultimately led me back to Conscious Leaders Quest. Because
Wow.
I thought, wow, like this changed when I did my own work. It created space for my son to
Mm.
heal, for
Oh.
my marriage to heal. I have a younger son, and he was able to step into the space. And then suddenly at my company, I had the best leadership team I've ever had.
Wow.
And suddenly I'm told, well, you should go work on other projects because we have this, we have the daily operations. So I saw the difference when we do our own inner work as leaders. And so that's what I'm trying to bring to the world through Conscious Leaders
Wow.
Quest, which is also why I'm super excited to do some of this work at
Yeah,
NEA with the Transformational Travel Council.
absolutely. And what an incredible purpose to discover that, going through transition and transformation from trauma, it really does shine a light on your purpose and how important it is. I'm really happy to hear that that you've come through this in a way that can be shared with the world because I couldn't agree more that conscious leadership is so important. Thank you for sharing that with us. We would
Absolutely.
we would love to find out. You kind of just answered it, but just in case you have some more info, what called you to join us at the Wisdom Retreat for Better Tourism?
That's always a great question because selling retreats myself, like I know when I see things and I'm like, that looks cool. And then when I see things and I'm like, I have to be there. Like I don't care.
Oh,
Like I absolutely have to be there. So immediately, I've been fascinated by MEA and fascinated by Chip Conley. And I heard him on a podcast and I heard him talk about really this idea that midlife, because the world is changing so fast, which it's
yeah,
part of the understanding that we have with Conscious Leaders Quest, that the world is changing so fast that we can no longer keep up as individuals and we need a new way to lead. And so with Chip talking about, well, midlife is really from like 35 to 65. And I'm like, well, that's the target demographic at Conscious Leaders Quest.
right.
And then I'm like, oh, we're doing this work. Like he's calling
Oh,
for,
yeah,
this is the work that we need to do in the world. And so I believe that Conscious Leaders Quest is a version of that. So that's like one specific piece. And then Jake, to get to meet Jake in person, we've had Zoom calls. I love
oh,
the work of the Transformational Travel Council. And then Sally Frankel, who is a dear, dear friend of mine. And she mentioned this, I think before it was even public, that this may be
mm,
something I was interested in. So really, I think it's people in place.
yeah.
And I can only imagine with those three people, what will unfold. So that's my draw where I decided I absolutely need to be in this space.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I got to connect with Sally yesterday, with Chip last
Mhm.
week, and with Jake a few months ago. And when we're always in contact quite a lot, but I couldn't agree more. These are really extraordinary people coming together, and I believe when you bring together brilliant minds and beautiful hearts, that magic
Mm,
happens. And I couldn't
for
agree
sure.
more. Yeah. So, what are your personal aspirations or hopes for the future of tourism?
Well, I link this back to the work that we do, that if we all become better versions of ourselves, then we can influence other people to go on that same journey. And really, the only way we get to change the world is to change ourselves. And so, with tourism, there's two components. There's wisdom, and there's adventure that are part of our four pillars of conscious leadership. So I feel like, and I'm going to back up. Like I don't feel like adventure is an important component to how we discover the best version, because it talks about and it teaches us about risk. And so I feel like with tourism, when we can lean into adventure, that it helps us discover this inner wisdom. And then we have this wisdom from place. And I've been fortunate enough over the last couple of years, I've gone on these super adventurous trips where the land, the place speaks to you and it changes you, and you get to learn wisdom from locals and then wisdom from the land. And I feel like it teaches us that we're all connected in a way that we all have to thrive, as opposed to this is about me and making sure I get mine over everybody else. I see so many instances, especially in the United States, where people think that we have it all down here and that, that they haven't been outside the country. And I feel like when you travel, that it humbles you and it connects you. And there's just, anyway, I think it's such a powerful tool to ultimately fulfill the purpose of Conscious Leaders Quest.
Absolutely. And I love that more altruistic approach and how travel can really bring that out. I relate to that. And you again, you sort of answered this question with your last one, but I'm going to throw it out there in case you have more. What role does wisdom play in tourism today, but also for tomorrow and in the future?
Yeah. And I think I said most on that, but I think that the important piece of it is, in today's age where we're super connected and there's information everywhere, that information often can't be trusted and it's often shallow. So I think the wisdom that we get to unlock, and these are two things I think are super important. We can unlock wisdom from ourselves. And I think that travel can help us to be able to do that. When we're uncomfortable, when we're comfortable, when we can just sit in the energy of a space, it unlocks that wisdom. And then we also get this wisdom from, wherever we're traveling. And I love this idea of transformational travel and that we are travelers. I think it's like I'm saying this right. We're travelers and we're not tourists, right? So we let the land and the experience imprint on us, and then we get to imprint in a positive way. And so I just think wisdom is such a needed component, and there's so much ancient wisdom that we use in Conscious Leaders Quest, and that I believe that wisdom from a simpler time can actually heal a lot of the challenges that we have today.
Oh, well said. Absolutely. And for you personally, why is transformational travel important to you?
Well, I do transformational work, and thinking about where I started and this idea that it's the journey of a lifetime, so that our transformation, whether we actually, now that I think about it, we're born and we immediately start changing from the time we're born until the time we die. So like we're all really, our whole lives are transformation. And we can resist that or we can lean into it. And so I think this idea of transformational travel is just really leaning into the journey of a lifetime and embracing the things that might scare us or the things that we might be afraid of. And those might be the very elixirs that can heal us.
Yeah, that age-old quote, do something that scares you every day,
Yes,
keeps you
yes,
growing.
yes,
I can't
absolutely.
wait to hear your answer to this one. If you could wave a magic wand and change one aspect of tourism or travel, what would it be?
Um, I'm trying to think about this and say it in an appreciative way, but I believe that when I very often hear about many people's travels, it, it's through like the masses. And so I feel like there needs to be some way to regulate anybody that's making money off travel and hurting the environment.
Mm,
And the thing that comes to mind for me, and maybe this is part of my own growth, but is cruise ships. It's
mm,
mass. When I think about travel, I think about tourists, I think of these massive cruise ships. And I was in the British Virgin Islands, um, and at a little, almost felt like you're on a deserted island. And I'd been there several
yeah,
times, and there's just locals around. And then all of a sudden, this big cruise ship pulls up and starts ferrying people in. And so suddenly, you're not connected with the place and the
mm,
land. It's just kind of overtaken
yeah,
um, by people that I don't necessarily think are there for the right reason. So if I could wave a magic wand, and like again, I'm trying to do it very appreciatively, but like, how do we as tour operators make sure that we're purpose driven, make sure that all stakeholders are winning, including the
mm,
environment? Because it just, when we have masses of people in spaces that are not able to accommodate that, then then I think everybody ultimately ends up losing and it lessens the experience. And we could have that same experience,
yeah,
In
absolutely.
Kansas City, you know. So
Yeah, I was on a call yesterday talking about the rights of nature, and we said, imagine if on our Zoom call we had little blocks that included, the oceans and the animals and the plants as an equal player in all of our conversations, how powerful that would be if we could do that. So I appreciate that very
yeah,
much.
absolutely.
Yeah. So do you have any parting words of wisdom? This is our last question together. Any parting words of wisdom you'd like to share with our community?
Well, I mean, I believe in appreciation. I believe in gratitude. So I have a lot of gratitude for the work that you're doing and the work that Jake and Sally and the Transformational Travel Council. It just feels like there's so much heart in that. And so I think just leaning off of that, my own leadership journey was at a crossroads at one point, and it was this idea on, do I double down on thinking and spreadsheets and all of the things that I feel like probably got me into trouble because I could justify things on paper, or how do I lean into my heart and the power and the energy of my heart and become more of a heart-based leader? And so I think just that's what it feels like to at least be in a Zoom space with anybody from the Transformational Travel Council. And I imagine that will only be magnified being in person. So I think that wisdom is, as humans and leaders, let's lean into the transformational journey and let's do it through our heart. And when we when we lead through our heart, I think that we will end up making places better and that we will imprint our energy on, local people and unlock the wisdom that we can gain through travel.
Oh, Ron, such powerful, powerful words. Thank you so much for sharing a piece of your heart with us today. Really appreciate it. And we're
Thank you.
excited to have you in Santa Fe with our community very, very soon.
Super excited. I can't believe like you just said, like I've been like it's been on my calendar and it seems like it's so far out there and it's getting so close. So I'm very excited
Um,
for the whole
and
experience.
fantastic. I'm just going to stop our recording here.